ナードホールズ、ケイレブとウィル、ドラゴンボールを視聴。
All right, what is up, everybody? This is a very special episode of the Nerd Holes. We're going to be starting our deep dive series into Dragon Ball. So our goal is Will has never seen any Dragon Ball Z stuff. So originally I said, let's just skip Dragon Ball. Let's get right into Dragon Ball Z. And I'll I'll just fill you in on a couple things. But Will said, if there's a beginning, let's start at the beginning. So we started at Dragon Ball, and I'm actually pretty happy that you decided that, because I genuinely forgot how good and how much I enjoy the Dragon Ball series. Dragon Ball Z is more action and adventure, but Dragon Ball has got this really special it's got this 80s Japanese cartoon feel.
Yeah.
And it's a special show to me. So we are going to cover the first 7 episodes in this video. Let me break it down here. We're watching it on Funimation. If you go on Funimation, if you go on season 1, it goes all the way to episode 31. But in actuality, the first season is based on the sagas. So season 1 is the Emperor Pilaf saga. So that is the first 13 episodes. So we're going to do half, and then next time we're going to cover the rest, the other 6.
Yep.
So tonight we are talking about episode number 1, Secret of the Dragon Balls. Episode number 2, The Emperor's Quest. Episode 3, The Nimbus Cloud of Roshi. 4, Oolong the Terrible. 5, Yamcha the Desert Bandit. Episode 6, Keep an Eye on the Dragon Balls. And episode 7, The Ox King on Fire Mountain. So, yeah. Yeah, you want a brief history, or you want to just...
Yeah.
Okay. So, in 1984, Dragon Ball was created by Akira Toriyama. He created it and he drew it. And it was released weekly. They did weekly comic short stories.
Okay.
So over there they had this magazine, Shonen Jump, and it's a collection of comics and manga.
Okay.
And they would put everybody had they probably had 20 to 30 stories, different stories, different animes, and they would put 3 or 4 page comic of each in the magazine. And that magazine came out every week in Japan. So every week there'd be a new story to each of those separate animes. It's basically just getting a magazine, a gaming magazine, and a section of it would be about Uncharted.
Okay.
And the next section is about Zelda. So it's basically that.
Makes sense.
But then
that's how a lot of magazines, kind of are. Yeah.
Yep. So they got super, super popular over there. And so they ended up putting they have these other things. Forget what they're called. They're basically a full-size book, a whole book of anime and manga. And they did 42 of those, because there's 519 chapters of Dragon Ball. And this follows Goku from when you first see him to I think when Goku has when he has Gohan.
Oh, okay.
Right into Dragon Ball Z. The first season Dragon Ball Z is Raditz, his brother, comes.
Okay.
I think that's literally it follows his so young adult too. This will eventually turn into young adult Goku.
Okay. I can understand that. Yeah.
Yeah. So it did really well, and they brought it over here to the West, and then they decided to do a like an actual like show, and that just got like more and more popular. And Toriyama kept like writing and drawing until he got tired in like '96, and then he eventually said like he kept writing the story, but then obviously he hired like artists and they did
Yeah.
all the
Yeah.
work from there. But like that's what makes Dragon Ball so special too, is like it's all hand drawn by Toriyama. You know, not the not the show per se, but it's very similar to like his art style.
Gotcha.
But
Okay.
yeah, so that's what's kind of cool. So
Mhm.
overall, so the thing is about this is like you haven't watched like a ton of anime either. So like you're not
No,
like a huge
not a huge. I've seen.
yeah.
I used to come home from school, and when I was like in my early mid teens, and I would watch Dragon Ball Z. But I only probably saw like all I remember was the introduction of Piccolo, and then the Spirit Bomb episode that was like 5 episodes of him making the Spirit Bomb against Frieza, and
Yeah. Yeah.
and one other thing I'm trying to remember was something with Vegeta. It was him, maybe
Hmm.
the first time he interacts with sees him or something like that. It's hard to know, but like,
Wow.
but again, that was like 20 years ago that I probably saw any episodes,
Yeah.
and I probably saw in total like 10 or 11 episodes. So
Yeah.
it's like the concept, and I've seen throughout, obviously just like you with Star Trek, like I've seen things throughout
Yeah.
the time that like I know characters' names and what they look like. Like I know Cell and like Android
Yeah.
18 and
Yeah.
whatever, all these like random characters like Trunks. Like I know of these characters, but like
Yeah.
who they are, like what their greater meaning for the show is, and like their purpose on the show, like
Yeah.
couldn't tell you. It wasn't honestly until I watched this that like I realized that I thought like Master Roshi was like his grandpa, not just some
Okay.
random guy like on the island. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Because when
true.
I had
Yeah.
seen
Yeah.
the
Well, why
show,
would? Yeah.
I thought he was like the relative that he's because the way he treats him in Dragon Ball Z, it seemed like it was a fatherly or grandfatherly like
Yeah.
relationship. So it was honestly, it was that's what I mean. Like, oh yeah, this guy's really close to Goku, but it's a totally
Yeah.
different feeling
Yeah.
than what it actually is.
And it kind of is. It kind of does become that
Yeah, I can
because
see that.
he spends so much time with like Master Roshi, like training and stuff that it's basically becomes a family member in a sense, you know?
Yeah, and it was funny too because the thing that made me laugh. I mean, I know I got a lot more to go through, but the thing that made me laugh was like Roshi appears in the one of the episodes. And I was like, oh, okay, cool, here he is, and then he was like, see you later. And it wasn't until the last episode I watched that he comes back like at the end, and I was like, oh,
Yeah.
like it just was surprising that this character that I thought was pretty pivotal to the show like wasn't in it a lot. And honestly, I
Yeah.
thought Bulma was like
Yeah.
barely in it. I didn't
Like a
realize
side
she was
character.
like a yeah.
Yeah, it's funny because when I started going back and rewatching this and I remember telling you like, yeah, I can fill you in on some of the stuff. But it's funny that when you first start watching it, it explains like pretty much like the main cast of characters that are going to be in the show for a long, long time are like introduced in like the first 3, 4 episodes.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, so it is probably good to watch here, like start here.
Yeah, I mean, I like it because there's a lot of characters on here that I don't even remember, and it seems like they're going to be around for quite a long time, like
Yeah.
Oolong and
Hmm.
Yamchi. Like these guys seem like they're going
Yeah.
to be here for a minute, you know?
Yeah. So that's kind of the unfortunate thing too, is like the further in that you get, like especially like the newer stuff like Dragon Ball Super,
Hmm.
a lot of those characters like Yamcha and Oolong,
Oh,
they kind of take
Yamcha. Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
a back beat. They kind of take a back seat, you know. because
Which I can understand because you get. I mean, it seems like what you were saying in your introduction that like the show changes,
it does.
right?
And
It
what happens
becomes
is
yeah,
like Goku essentially gets so strong that like now like Yamcha and even like Krillin, and they're just humans. They were really good at like martial arts back in the day, and they could keep up with him when he's a kid. But like the stronger he gets as an adult, it's like it kind of would be stupid to have them like
mm,
fighting aside him. Like you can't like
mm.
have them fight alongside him, and it's like, well, they're gonna
He's
get
taking
killed.
on these like world destroying characters,
Yeah,
right? Yeah, I
and
can understand.
that's what's kind of cool. That's like you haven't met Krillin yet in the show, but
No,
that's what kind of makes him cool is that like he does kind of keep up with Goku for a long time, and like he's just a human. That just shows like how strong and how good at like martial arts he is.
cool.
So that's kind of cool.
And what's even funny too, for that fact, and obviously I can't discuss it at great length because I haven't seen him in the new episode in these episodes. But like that's another point is like I thought Krillin and Gohan were like the
Hmm.
like you know what I mean? Like that's where they were introduced, not like he's a Goku
Oh
buddy that just like
yeah.
he had just had to like naturally default to his son because he's
Oh
getting more
yeah.
powerful. You
Well,
see what I mean? Like
you're picturing you're picturing Krillin and Gohan on Namek like during the Frieza
right,
saga, and like
right,
they go with Bulma to Namek to like get the Dragon Balls, and Goku's
right,
basically like sick in bed on Earth. he's,
right,
he's
right, right, right.
he got beat up by Vegeta essentially. So
Right. So that's what it's funny that you say that because like
yeah,
that's how I always thought Krillin
yeah,
and Gohan were always like Batman and Robin. Like they were the
pretty
guys who
much.
were
Yeah,
together.
they do
Which is
become that,
funny
but
that they do, but like clearly he's a buddy of Goku's that's
so they're Goku and Krillin are the same age.
yeah, which I never would have.
I think Krillin's actually older. So, but what happens is like obviously when they both become adults, like Krillin kind of stays the same height, and
Yeah.
Goku like
Seems like
hits a growth
it.
spurt. Yeah,
Yeah. Well, like you're saying, which we'll probably get into, is like that clearly Goku is more than just not human, right? Like a lot of the things that he's
right.
makes him different. So yeah.
So that's the thing, kind of going into this is like it kind of just starts. The show just kind of starts, and if you don't have any like knowledge of the show, you're kind of like,
Yeah.
okay, But it was made to be like mysterious. Like, why does this kid have a tail? Why is he?
Oh, it's
What
very
happened to his
much so.
grandpa? Like where's his
Yeah, yeah,
grandpa?
yeah. It's really interesting because I mean, to speak on it is, that's what I felt like. Okay, I can understand this concept of the kid and all this thing, but then it's like they do these like really subtle things, and I'm like, okay, this is how they're going to tell the story.
Yeah,
Is like, okay, for example, he punches people, does stuff happens, and he constantly is like, I'm so hungry, like
yeah,
constantly, right? And I
yeah.
thought it was just like a silly
Like a
kid thing.
funny, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And he keeps doing it. And then the episode happens and Oolong is even like, what the heck, man? Like what is happening? Like you're literally eating all of our food. And I was like, okay, so this is more than just like a throwaway stupid kid thing,
yeah,
right? And then Yamcha shows up and he's like, yeah, but I've eaten and I'm full. And I was just like,
yeah,
okay,
yeah.
okay,
What does he say? Last time you fought me on an empty stomach. He
yeah.
kicks his butt.
And there's another line that I totally forgot about. There's another thing too where he talks about eating earlier in the episode. It's something like I think he says it when he's hurt. He's like, all I have to do is get something to eat or something like that.
Mm.
I forget what he says exactly, but there was a line, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. And then as of late,
Yeah,
like pulling on his tail, right, is like a
yeah,
weakness.
right. So like it's cool that that's how they set up. Like, okay, so that's like his weakness.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so I don't want to speak on that too much because like that
No, I know. Yeah. Clearly,
that
that's like
kind
a
of is a
big.
whole thing. And
Yeah.
you kind of already know about like the monkey form,
Yes,
the
I've
great
seen it,
great
but
ape and everything. But
yeah.
yeah, but we'll hold off on that stuff because that's
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
the next 6 episodes could dig into that pretty good. But yeah, so there's all these little like subtle things, like his tail and stuff, and it's
Yeah.
it's kind of cool too. And I won't speak on it too much, but like later on, when like the other Saiyans come to, like when Vegeta comes to Earth, and you see like them for
Okay.
the first time, like they're Saiyans, they also have tails too, obviously, but like they wrap them around their waist as like a belt
Oh,
because they are like so sensitive and like the source of their power. So like
interesting.
now you're seeing like Goku, like how vulnerable he is. He just has his tail like just
Yeah,
flapping
yeah,
around.
yeah,
Oh, it's funny too that he has like actual like dexterity in his tail. Like he can
yeah,
like do things with it.
yeah. They grab things and
Yeah.
yeah, gets
Washes his back.
yeah, yeah. No, it's cool.
But I think that's one of
And
the things that you weren't like super expecting is the like the Japanese like humor.
yeah, it's some of it I totally understand and I get it, and other times I'm just like, like I don't know, but I think it's just from
Yeah.
I think it's honestly it's not even so much like it's necessarily like inappropriate. It's just I think it's just when you look at it from like a 2023 perspective,
Mm-hmm.
it's like that thing where you're like, it's kind of like when you watch The Cage and it's
Mm-hmm.
like he's upset that there's a woman on the bridge. It's like in the 60s, that wasn't really that. Who cared? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, okay, of course he's upset. But now you're like, ugh, that's a terrible thing to say. So I
It's
think it's
true.
like the same. It's like I think some of the stuff is, some of it is a cultural thing. They like to
Definitely.
play on
Yeah.
stuff, but some of it also is just,
Doesn't age well.
yeah, it just didn't age well.
But you know what's funny too is like to be on the other side of that too. It's kind of like when you go back and you rewatch like The Office,
Oh yeah,
and you're
even
like,
that
man,
doesn't
there's a
age well.
lot of stuff on here that like you could not.
No,
And I think
no,
that's kind of what kind of keeps some of the charm of it too, is that like it's like a historical piece essentially. It's
absolutely. Definitely is an insight into how their culture like views comedy, views like
Mhm.
the view just how they view children in general. It's
Yeah.
interesting how because like the Chi Chi thing happens, and I
Oh
was like,
yeah.
okay, that's a little much for her to be a similar age. But then at the same
Yeah.
time, it's like they kind of just keep inter. It's like it's a thing and it's not a thing. Like that she's young and that she's it's like it's a weird balance that they
Yeah.
do.
Well, they also have no issue with Yamcha showing up and just immediately like punching her in the back of the head too. Like
Sure.
did not he like
Yeah,
lays her out.
he really does smash her pretty. She had that crazy thing though. That was a
Oh,
cool scene.
that
That
like
thing came up and like cut the dinosaur's neck
yeah,
in half. Just like, oh.
and then after that, she like uses the center beam that like blows it up. Chi Chi's cool. Chi Chi's so
Yeah, I can see that.
it's funny too because like knowing like the Ox King of like modern like Dragon Ball Z, he's just Goku's father-in-law. He has like nothing special. Like he doesn't do anything in the show.
Yeah,
And this he shows up and he's this huge like axe wielding like menacing dude.
yeah,
They really like play him down later on.
I see. Okay.
But yeah, so kind of following the first 7 episodes kind of introduce everybody. So like episode 1, you find out like Goku's alone. He
Yeah,
Bulma basically hits him with a car. It's the first
yeah.
time Goku's seen any other human other
Like
than his
anything,
grandpa.
right?
So
Like
that's kind
he
of the
didn't know
running joke.
anything.
It's like the running joke that I love is like he can't tell male and female apart from like looking at them. Like he can't.
Right.
He doesn't has no idea.
Right. He has no idea. Yeah.
He thinks Bulma's car was like this monster in the
The
forest that he had to like
monster.
beat up. Oh, I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
And she just immediately shoots him too. Like immediately shoots him.
Yeah. Yeah. Like really shoots him too. And he's like, ah.
Yeah. Yeah. So he's bulletproof too.
Yeah. Which is
Yeah.
interesting because I think you kind of hinted at it in like what would be considered season two.
Yeah.
It's a really weird thing that they're doing is, and I'm sure I'll understand it, but it's like it's such a breakaway from what I expected. Is you have like the Bulma stuff and
Mhm.
the Emperor Pilaf stuff and somebody else. Is it Yamcha?
Yamcha, he's after the
Maybe it was
balls too, I think.
Yamcha. It was something else, and it was like they have all this technology,
Hmm.
but like the show is so grounded in just like houses and huts and like out in the middle of the wilderness, and it's like, oh, it's not really.
Yeah.
And I was like, what a weird thing to
Yeah, it's
be.
true. They haven't been to any like major cities.
Yeah, which is fine because
There are.
you wouldn't expect Dragon Balls to be like in
Yeah.
the middle of a giant city, but still, it's
Yeah.
just like I didn't expect. Like when on it was really cool. I thought like when Bulma opens up that thing and she had that case full of the caps, the
The
Dino
capsules.
caps, and then
Hmm.
was like whipping them. It's like, oh, I got this thing and that thing. I was just like, well, how hyper advanced is this? Is the
Society, yeah.
world? Yeah, it's like
Pretty
it's
advanced.
right.
So that's for me, that's kind of interesting too, because like I don't remember them being called dino caps. Um,
Mm.
it's like in the future, Bulma invents Capsule Corp. So like
Oh, okay.
that's her business is like capsules.
I see.
And so like, like Capsule Corp is the same thing from the future, but
Okay.
I assume that like maybe her dad is because her dad's like this brilliant scientist and Bulma's like a really smart scientist too.
Yeah.
But yeah, isn't that cool that you just like you have this case of stuff and you
Yeah,
just
they
like
just like
throw them?
just whip it and then it explodes and
Yeah, it's a full house.
you
She has
just
that full house that like opens.
yeah
That'd be pretty sweet.
that one episode too. It's like a double. Or did he have it? Oolong had like the double
Oolong.
decker
Yeah.
like travel camper thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, but was it Oolong's or did he just steal Bulma's?
No, it was his.
Oh, it was his. Okay,
Yeah, it was his.
okay. It's funny how yeah. So yeah, we'll as we go on because that first episode does she does the bath episode happen? Does the bath scene happen in the first episode?
I think it is, yeah.
So the reason I bring it
No,
up is
second episode.
no
Because
second
the
episode.
first episode ends with Goku saving her from the pterodactyl creature. And that's another thing. Like
Yeah. Okay.
there's just dinosaurs and stuff like that exist in this like,
Okay.
universe.
Okay. So you said it, so now I'll get into it. Here's the thing that was really weird. So in the bath scene, she then realizes that the tail is like a part of him and not some weird like costume piece or something. And
Yeah.
I'm sure it's just the creators and just like the way the culture is. But it honestly kind of made me be like, huh? Is she was so weirded out by his tail, right?
Yeah.
And then scenes later, there's like a talking pterodactyl, and then like there's this talking cat thing and dog, and I was just like, is he that weird though? Because
No.
like there's like a talking turtle. I was like,
Well, you find out in like Dragon Ball Z too that like the president is like a blue dog. So it's like
okay.
that's all just like crazy, like fun anime, like Japanese.
I think
style
I'm just gonna chalk it up that Bulma is just weird because
stuff.
it's
Bulma's
like
weird.
immediately when that pterodactyl picked her up and he was like, oh, blah 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 blah. I was just like, okay.
But Bulma doesn't even know if like boys have tails. That's like how confused she was.
That's
Because
true.
she's like, I don't, well, maybe that's true. I've never seen a boy.
Yeah.
No, that's not a thing. And
Yeah.
I love the fact that Goku's like, it's all right, Bulma, that you don't have a tail. He keeps saying it. And she's like, I
Yeah.
don't want a tail. Shut up.
Yeah.
There's
It
that
was
one scene too where he comes back into the bathroom and he says something
Mhm.
like degrading, and she's like, "That's it, get out of the bathroom." He kicks him out.
Yeah.
But then he goes out
Yeah.
hunting for to get those wolves because he's starving.
Yeah.
And the thing that I always find funny about that too is like she thinks it's disgusting that he's eating like wolves and snakes, and
Oh yeah.
he tells him, "Yeah, when you get into like civilization, kid, like nobody eats this stuff." And he's like, "Oh,"
Right.
and she's like, "Yeah, you're just gonna have to toughen up." Yeah. He's gonna have the tough. He's eating.
Well, yeah, I mean that was the really that also I really enjoyed the fact like it was silly, but I was like, no, it's just I like it. It was when she gives him the bread and he's like, this is
Yeah,
gross.
this is gross. Yeah.
But I like that he didn't like coffee and he didn't like bread because he
Yeah, they're
has
gross.
water and eats like cooked meat from random animals. It's like,
Well, in that first episode, you see
yeah,
how good he has it. Like he's hungry, so he grabs an apple like on the way to like fishing and
right, right.
catches that giant fish, you know.
Yeah.
But I love the like the intro to like Goku is he's like, oh, I'm hungry. I should let my stomach decide. And he's like, fish? Like, yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. So the first episode he meets Bulma.
Yeah.
Second episode, I think he runs into Mai and what's his name? I always forget his name.
Shoe.
Shu.
That's a me. Shoe.
Shu's, I love Shu. He's pretty funny.
Yeah, I like shoe a lot.
Yeah, so he runs into them. They're looking for the Dragon Ball. He thinks they're in a giant bird, so he's trying to get a bird.
Oh yeah. Okay.
He kicks it out of the sky. He kicks
Yeah,
it.
yeah. Yeah. Power pole extend.
Oh, so good. And Pilaf is such a
Oh man.
he's such like a he's such a doofus. He's a typical like person that's in power that like shouldn't be in power, but also like they call him Emperor Pilaf because he's in a castle, but like he doesn't have any subjects or like people like in his kingdom.
Doesn't seem like it, yeah.
It's like he has nothing.
Yeah, it's funny because like I like him. I like him and like I enjoy the character, but he's also like there's something about him that makes me
Hmm.
he doesn't like super endear me, and I don't know what it is. Because sometimes when in these shows, like when the villains are stupid or stupider, like you're
Yeah.
like, oh, it's still funny, but there's something still about him. I'm like, I don't know what it is. I'm more invested in his minions there, whatever Mai and Chu, you know.
Mai and Shu are the better characters for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I did the thing that makes me laugh too with the show is like how like you always expect like in a kid show or a cartoon like you're gonna have like booger and fart jokes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But then it was like he passes gas in that scene and he
Yeah.
blames it on Shu, and I was
He's
just
like
like, man,
torturing him.
they're like really going into it. And I was like all over a fart thing, and then later with Oolong and the piggy thing, and I was just like,
Oh
wow,
yeah.
wow, wow, wow. Like it's just a
Piggy.
surprising. Yeah, it was a thing where I just didn't think
They
a
love it.
cartoon would like go that far. You know what I
No,
mean?
they love it.
So I know you hate subtitles, but I put subtitles on when I watch it,
Mm,
so just so I can understand.
yeah.
And then my favorite is when it was the first time it happened, and she's like piggy, 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 and he's like, oh, he's running, running, and then it just shows him in the bush, and in the subtitles it says intense diarrhea. Is what it
Yeah, I did see that. Yeah.
That made me.
I love too, like in that scene, like Goku like immediately thinks that like Bulma's a witch. And then she
Yes,
explains it, and then he's like,
he's like,
"Oh,
what
okay."
is
And then
it?
he starts like making fun of Oolong, like immediately goes like,
Yeah, he's like, oh, okay, piggy,
"Oh,
piggy.
oh, baby." Well, what a weird, like specific, like
Yeah.
pill that like capsule that is.
So do you?
And also,
Here's
like,
my question.
wouldn't it like not stay in your system if like the whole thing is designed to like make
I
you go to
mean, yeah,
bed?
that
Wouldn't it like
first
not? Yeah.
pass. Yeah. Another thing I was thinking too, do you think it's just a straight up like weird translation issue?
Oh no. Uh,
Because I wonder
no.
if it's like the capsule, it does what it does, and then like the piggy thing is like not really what they're saying in Japanese. It's something else, and then
Yeah.
they're like,
Maybe it's like
is it,
just hitting him, and they're like making fun of him. I don't know. That's a good point. I
yeah,
never thought about it.
could be them saying like oink 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 in Japanese, and it's like, well, that doesn't make any. I don't know. Who knows?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it's a translation thing. I honestly wouldn't like if it isn't. It wouldn't surprise me either because like that's just the type of humor. Like
Yeah,
a lot of
true.
the show has that type of humor. So
do you think I am, running a salon?
Yeah, I love that too. So like Oolong's whole thing is like he went to shape-shifting school and now he's using it for like he's using it for bad. Essentially,
Yeah.
he's trying to like get like girls to come be like take care of his castle and cook him dinner and stuff. And like all they don't do anything. Like,
Yeah. It was
so
actually really
stupid.
funny when they show up and they were fine. And they were just like, "Did you get the milk or whatever?" She says to him. Yeah, that was really funny.
Well, I love what too. They make Goku dress up as the girl,
Oh wow,
and he's
yes,
like
yes, I
so
forgot that
not.
happened.
He's like so not happy.
He's like, I don't know about this.
But then he has to pee so bad he goes over and pees on the tree, like right in the middle of like everything.
Yeah.
And Oolong is like, "Oh, you're a boy," and he's like, "How did you tell? How could you tell?" He's so stupid. I love it. I love how stupid and like innocent he is.
Yeah.
Man, that's funny. Yeah. So then you meet Oolong, and they basically force Oolong to go along with him.
Yeah. Just to
And
be like a thing that they can force him to shapeshift and then
yeah.
use it for. Yeah.
And the other thing that's kind of interesting is like, so now it's like episode 5 or
Mhm.
4, 5, and they already have 5 of the Dragon Balls.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that
Like
was pretty
immediately,
impressive.
they have 5. And I really like the detail that like Goku carries the number 4 ball like in his little like sack on his belt. Like he doesn't.
Yeah.
He always has it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then you meet Yamcha and
Yep.
Poor, which is
Yep.
probably the most. Poor is like the most annoying character in my opinion.
Yeah,
Just the voice is super
yeah.
grating.
I can understand it.
Yeah.
She's not he or she or whatever. I don't know. The cat is not. It sounds like a girl, but I don't. I just don't know.
I can't remember. I think it is a girl.
But yeah, it's interesting because I like the character solely because like they um I don't know, they're not like weird. They
Yeah.
just trying to look out for Yamcha and like figure just work her along or side him.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's funny too that like so Poor and Oolong went to the same school, like
Yeah,
shape-shifting school.
yeah. Honestly, that scene I thought it was really really funny. That scene where um there's like miscommunication and like investigation and Poor goes Yamcha kid like muffles Goku and
Oh my god,
Poor
dude.
goes
That
up the
whole
stairs and he's like, oh, Oolong's like, oh no, he thinks Goku's coming up. So he turns into like a weird looking Bulma, which is so funny to me too.
it's
It's
so
like,
funny.
why doesn't he look like normal Bulma? He can do
And
that.
and and Poor's version of like Goku looks like a ditto, uh from Pokemon
Yes.
with just the beady eyes.
Yeah.
Like, oh
Like
hey
the weird
Bulma,
like
why don't we go look for Oolong outside?
yeah, that act I
Oh, dude,
laughed at
that
that pretty
that
good
scene
because it
is
was just
so good. Yeah,
yeah, that made me laugh because it was just the whole setup, the payoff
it's
and
so
all
good.
that.
It's so good. Even
Yeah,
before that too, when he like looks in the window to like see like where everybody
yes,
is, and it's Bulma, and it's just
mm,
like because his whole thing is like he can't talk to women. He's so like shy, like talking to women.
right.
But then that scene ends where they come back to the van. And he's sitting outside, and he's just saying, "Not Dragon Balls, not Dragon Balls."
Yeah, yeah,
It's just such good like timing, like
yeah.
comedic timing and stuff. Oh man. And at the same time, like Mai and Shu were trying to put a bomb on the
The car, yeah,
and he got it
yeah,
stuck to his fur, and then he sets it for like 8 a.m.
yeah. I
And
totally
then
forgot about it too when after they get shot with the missile, and I totally forgot that the bomb was on there. And they're like,
yeah,
"All right, let's get on the bus." I was like, "Oh no."
yeah, because they get shot with a missile. So then by the time that like Mai and Shu show up, they're
Right.
like, "Oh yeah, looks like the bomb worked." Look, it's not even 8 a.m. yet. When it explodes, you oh
Yeah.
man, so funny.
And it plays off too because it's like, wow, Emperor Pilaf must have just gotten lousy bombs, so obviously it went off early, kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so then isn't that the scene where they're like, well, I just wish once like Emperor Pilaf would just say, yeah, no, we're in the spy business. Sometimes things go bad. And like he says that verbatim, but then he's like, you fools think that I'm serious? Like I rule this place with an iron fist. And he like sets him up to the electric chair, like outside,
Oh,
the
yes,
lightning.
yes.
But I love stuff like that because like they get shot with lightning and it's funny. But then like he gets electrocuted because it shows that like they're all idiots, basically, like they all deserve it.
Right. Yeah.
So he doesn't go like unscathed from it.
Yeah.
He puts his fork up, like pointing.
So
So good.
am I supposed to believe that
Mhm.
well, maybe I shouldn't ask.
No, you can ask any question you want.
You just will choose not to answer. So um
No comment.
am I led to believe that like the more hungry he is, the weaker he is? Because I think in the scene when they go into the village before they understand who Oolong is, he gets hit in the head with the axe, and then he gets that huge lump in his head.
Yeah.
And I was like, because in my mind, I'm thinking he got shot at with bullets,
Mhm.
and then he gets hit over the head with an axe. Like it should have equally the same not an issue. But then I was thinking later when they talk about the food thing, I was like, I don't remember. Was he like really hungry and like now he's weaker? Like that was just
Well,
my
when Bulma shoots him, he's hungry too. That's why he's out there getting the fish because he's like
that's
starving.
true.
I think the axe head thing with the like classic cartoon knot, it's literally
Yeah.
just like comedy. It's just like classic
Okay.
cartoon comedy.
Okay.
His like hunger thing is always a thing. It's basically just saying like the Saiyans have such a high metabolism because they're a warrior race.
Okay.
So they always eat like they're like Vikings. They feast and then they battle. They feast and they battle. And it's like
I remember
if
in
he's
the
hungry during a fight, he can't like focus on the fight at all. He's like so distracted by like how hungry his.
okay. Because I remember something in Dragon Ball Z where it was like he was hungry and he ends up eating like beans or something. Or
Well, that's a whole
okay, okay,
the beans, the sensu beans. They're
okay.
like no, they're not magical, but they're like they restore all of your health essentially.
I see.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
they give you back all your energy and all your health.
Okay.
And they're like a special thing that they're grown by this. I don't even remember what he is. This cat.
Okay. Well, yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
we'll get
it
there.
gets
It's fine.
weird.
But it's it's just a thing. Like I have like part knowledge of things, and then it's like they talk about it in these episodes, and I'm like,
Yeah,
like do these like, oh,
yeah.
this connects, and it's like, no, it
The
doesn't.
the other thing about like sayings that you kind of will start to see is that every time that they get beat bad in a battle, every time they get like beat almost nearly to death,
Mhm.
when they restore their health, they become like stronger overall.
I see.
So every time they get
I
beat,
see.
they get stronger. It's like their natural like
It's like
response to like
Doomsday, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Gotcha. That's cool. I like that.
yeah.
Which
Yeah, I think
which makes sense.
they dig in more into like kind of the backstory of Goku because you don't really get to see Gohan. You don't get to see
Mm-mm.
like you don't know, and they kind of hint to the fact that he's an alien, right? Because like Bulma's like, I don't know what planet this kid's from, but it's not Earth.
Yeah.
So they kind of don't really talk about that yet.
Well, do they expand upon who his actual father is? Because their Gohan is his grandpa, which is not really his grandpa. It's just like a person who helps him.
So yeah, there's a movie that we won't cover because it's not canon officially anymore,
Oh,
but it's called Bardock, the Father of Goku.
I see.
But I think you see Bardock a few times in the show. I think you see like flashbacks to like
I see.
Bardock was kind
That's
of the
cool.
first one that knew that Frieza was going to blow up the planet. So he specifically like sends Goku to Earth. or just he just launches his pod like out, so he'll survive. Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Cool.
And it's not really a huge in-depth backstory. Basically, it's like Bardock sends him out into space. His pod crashes on Earth and falls out and hits his head pretty hard to like forget that he's even like a Saiyan and that his goal was to like destroy Earth essentially. Like he was sent to Earth to like kind of like conquer it, but he doesn't land out in the mountains. And Gohan found him because Gohan he just lives out there and just raised him.
Yeah, like Roshi, yeah.
But you will see in the next like 7 episodes what happens to Gohan, or like how he died essentially.
And it's really funny to me is you were like what do you call it, paraphrasing the story of Saiyans and stuff like that, and I was like, this is like literally, and I know that Dragon Ball came first. Well, maybe not. I don't know. Maybe in the 60s, but the Eternals movie is just like, it was like, this is exactly what happens in the Eternals movie.
That's
and
funny.
It made me laugh because I was like,
Well, I'll tell you, the Saiyans is a better story.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I already know that. That's easy. That's hands down. Everything has been better than that so far. But it's a really interesting. It's really interesting how they go about like everything, like how they, like you were saying, like how they take part of, they'll introduce something subtly or like intentionally, and you'll just think like, oh, whatever, and then an episode or 2, maybe even 3, all of a sudden it's like, oh, well, it's this. And you're like, oh, okay, like they basically like the food thing, his tail. A couple other things that they've done. I was like, oh, okay, like they're doing a slow burn about like who this kid is and what he's
Chi-Chi pulling his tail in that last episode we watched. That is like really setting up stuff for like the next like few episodes. Just trying to like explain like, okay, this is kind of why he has a tail. This is what happens if he doesn't have a tail.
Cool. Yeah, I also like the other thing they do really well too is very other than Goku's like backstory and like things about him. The other thing that I really like that they do is like if something weird happens and you're like, well, why would that happen? They explain it, and I really enjoy that type of thing. Like almost within the same beat. So like perfect example. So Roshi is like really happy that they helped his turtle friend.
Yeah.
And he's like, how can I help you? And he's like, well, I'll give you something. And they're like, oh, you can't have that. Oh, the magic carpet. You can't have it. It's at the cleaners.
It's in the cleaners.
And then he's like, well, I'll give you the Nimbus cloud. I'm like, okay. So he comes and then he explains to him how it works. And he's like, okay. And then he goes to get on it and he falls through it. And it's like, oh, that's weird. And then even the turtle's like, yeah, why did that happen? And he's like, you must not be pure at heart anymore. And I'm like, well, this is a weird story beat to just throw at you, that this guy who has the cloud can't use the cloud because he's no longer pure of heart. And the turtle's even confused as to why that's happening. And I was like, oh, weird. And then a minute later, 30 seconds later, it's like even stuff happens and the turtle's like, oh.
Yeah, right. Like, oh, okay. Like, yeah. Oh, maybe that's why you can't ride your cloud.
Right. And I was like, I honestly, like, it was a silly scene, but I like that it was like that happened. Yeah, like they kind of explain, like they don't just leave stuff just like out in the open to be like, well, why?
And you know what else it does too? What's really cool about the Nimbus cloud is it's a really like cool way to show moving forward. Is a really cool way to like endear you to characters without really even having to know like much about them. Like
That's
Goku
true.
jumps on Nimbus and he rides it like he's had it his whole life. Like even Master Roshi's like, wow, you took to that thing like you've always had it, you know?
Right,
It
right.
just it endears you to Goku, and then like later on, like in the other episode, like Chi Chi jumps on and
Yeah,
she
when Chi
climbs
Chi gets
on,
on.
and you're like, oh wow, that's so like these
Yeah, when
two are
she
like really like special, you know?
when she got on and it was like and I was like, okay. Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
It's like for the audience, it's a cool like gauge, you know.
yeah.
And
I mean,
Bulma
honestly,
can't ride it.
Bulma couldn't write it, and I was honestly really
No,
surprised that Bulma couldn't write it because she doesn't seem really that messed up. So
she's shallow. She's shallow. Her whole no, but honestly, her whole
true, true.
intent of like getting the Dragon Balls is that she can wish a boyfriend.
A boyfriend.
And Yamcha wants to wish so that he can talk to a girl.
Yeah,
Okay. What a waste
yeah.
of a good wish.
Could you imagine? Could you
And the
imagine getting like a
history,
genie thing and one of your
yeah.
wishes is like, can I just have a girlfriend? Like, no.
No. No, that's really lame.
I can't make anybody fall in love.
And I can't keep up with the history of like the Dragon Shenron and like the wishes because it changes so much throughout the series that I can't remember if I think in this time period you only get one. You get one wish.
Yeah, that was the thing that made me laugh. And I said, the internet's doing terrible things. And I said, I know it's like a 35 plus year old show. I said, but I'm getting spoiled. I was trying to type something in the other day to like send you a thing. I think it was the picture of the hand with the Dragon
Oh
Ball. I was
yeah.
trying to
Yeah.
find a good picture, and I type it in, and it was like, "Oh, do you want this Dragon Ball or this Dragon Ball or this Dragon Ball or this Dragon Ball or this?" And it's like this dragon or and I was just like, "Okay, I'm seeing too much. I'm seeing too much."
It's one of those things that it just gets like ridiculous to get ridiculous, you know? Like
Yeah,
so in this time period, Dragon Ball is like this big, right? It's this,
right.
it's really cool. They're gold and they glow when they get
Yeah,
together. It's great. Dragon Ball Z, they go to Namek
yeah.
because they're
Okay.
the Dragon Balls on Earth get destroyed or whatever. So they go to Namek where the Dragon Balls originally.
Spoilers.
Yeah. Anyway, the balls are like this big. They're huge.
Yeah,
They're huge, right? They're huge. You got to
I
carry them.
remember them being huge in the show.
And
Yeah.
then Dragon Ball Super comes out and they're like, oh, well, yeah, we have these things called space Dragon Balls, and they're the size of planets.
Oh no,
You're like, what?
it's funny.
Yeah, it just gets like
Catch 'em
nuts.
all.
It's nuts. There's a lot of other versions too, but we won't have to talk about those. But the Dragon Balls are such a cool thing too.
Yeah, I agree.
Like they just look cool, you know. There's a guy I've seen that he makes them out of like resin. He casts them all and
Oh
puts like
yeah,
a star in it. It's like, man.
I feel like though. Okay, here's my caveat with that.
Yeah, yeah.
Is now that I'm like a huge diehard fan for it now.
Yeah. Oh yeah, of course.
It's-
Now that I've
I've
seen like
seen
3 episodes. So.
3 episodes. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've seen the people make them, right, and they're the resin, orange resin with the
Yep.
stars in them, right? And I tell you, the thing that it doesn't do it for me because I want it to have that like clear. I don't want it to be clear. I want them to look like full in color because they're not transparent in the show. And if they were transparent, like they would show that.
Oh yeah.
So I like, to me it would be like the thing to do with both of it is like almost like take a resin thing and then like as it's like put a solid piece of orange coloring like inside of it and then put the stars like in it, and so that when you look at it it's like both. It's like transparent but not completely transparent. I think that would be a
I
actual
understand.
better
Yeah.
visual representation.
You're almost wanting it to be like a lot of the dice, like people make dice for like D&D, and they
Yeah.
have these like inner fill like dice, and they
Okay.
have like the outside layer. So like the inner side is the same dice, but it's smaller,
Yeah.
and they make them hollow, and they put like alcohol and like glitter in there, and they seal it. And then they put it in the mold and they pour the resin on top and it makes the outside shell with the numbers. So then when you
Yes.
pull it out and it's dry, it's clear, the outside is clear, but if you shake it, the inside is liquid. So it like swirls, like the glitter swirls around. If you could do that in a Dragon Ball, like gold glitter, and it would like move, and you could see like the stars in one spot,
Right, right.
that would be kind of cool. I think it's just a thing too,
Yeah,
where like the animation is just like
yeah.
they're
It's just a
just
color.
gold balls. Like, don't draw the like if you
Yeah,
had to draw the grass behind, like, oh,
like every time he's holding it, like draw his shirt. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah,
No, I totally get it, and I'm sure they're supposed to be transparent. I just like to me seeing it like if somebody was cosplaying with it, I would rather honestly see a more
yeah,
cartoonish representation of it than like a
yeah,
transparent like glass orb. It just doesn't scream Dragon Ball to me. It
yeah.
screams
Like
like
it's yeah, you're probably right. It's just in the universe of like Dragon Ball, when you it's like a such a clear like glass thing. It's so different from anything else that it really shows you like how like
that's
special of a
true.
thing it is, you know?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that seeing a orange glass orb would
Well,
be pretty
the real thing
pretty
to do is like
outlandish.
if you could get them when they get together, like glow and like pulsate. Now
Mm.
that would be the thing.
Yeah, I think you have to go to India for that. So
Yeah, well, they only have three.
yeah, he has
The choo
come from our
choo choo
village.
the choo choo money stone. Whatever it was.
Yeah,
What was it called? The
Sankara
Sankara
stones,
stone.
I think.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, so that was pretty what the last episode was. So yeah, you meet Master Roshi. And that's
yeah.
cool. He gives him the Nimbus, and then later on you meet the
Immediately,
Ox
the
King.
Ox King is like, "It's fine. I won't fight you. I know
Yeah,
all
but
about your
so
family."
yeah, right. So that's kind of the thing you learn. Yeah, yeah, that's right. You learn in that episode too that like Gohan and the Ox King were Master Roshi's like pupils at one point.
Yeah, yeah.
They like trained
Which was
together.
cool. Which was really cool.
It kind of brings everything together. Yeah.
The thing that made me laugh, though, I was kind of like, "Well, why is Master Roshi like kind of a jerk?" Is like Ulan tells him that um the thing with the fire on the mountain, he couldn't get back home essentially,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it's
Yeah.
like, and then he's like, "Well, Master Roshi has the fan
Yeah.
to like get rid of it." I'm like, "Well, why didn't he do this a long time ago?" Like the way Oolong was talking about it was like, this has been happening for quite a long time.
Yeah. You'll see. You'll see the next episode. Like you were just talking about
Oh,
like something that's like, hey, so what about this thing? And like immediately they're like,
I just had to see one more episode.
yeah. Yeah, basically the
Cool.
Ox King's an idiot. That's basically what
I
that.
see. He did seem kind of stupid. Yeah.
Yeah, he's not bright, you know. He basically had like a sorcerer put that like fire to protect his castle so no one steal anything out of it, and it was so bad that even he couldn't get his castle.
Yeah. So I know I said it to you, but I'll say it to your viewers so that they also can laugh at me. Is
Yeah.
the thing that I was like, oh, what an interesting thought, and then you were like, no, you're overcomplicating it. Was when Goku was like, oh, my grandfather's Gohan, and I was like, his son that he has in the future travels into the past, and he becomes his own like a Futurama thing, and I was like,
Yeah.
and you were like, no, no, he just
No,
named his
no.
grandfather.
I was like, hey, you know how like in present time, like people will name like their first kid after like their father or something to keep like the name. Yeah, that's all it is.
That's all it is. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like I know it gets confusing because later on, like there's a whole lot of time travel in the show.
Right.
It doesn't have anything to do with this is just
No.
this is just carrying a name.
Yeah. It's just a family tradition, really.
This is just
It's
a
all
family crest that they're carrying on. Yeah. Yeah, don't worry about it. You
Oh
idiot.
man. That made me laugh. That made me laugh. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, other than that, any other like questions that like you really feel like you need to know going in to the next 6?
Do they kind of explain like why there's animal people and why they talk and all that stuff? Like, do they
As,
kind of ever explain that?
as far as I remember, no.
Okay. Because it's just funny, like, hey, it's Earth, and then it's like there's talking pigs and dogs and cats and
Yeah. Well, it's one of those things too where like the art style is set like Toriyama, I guess he loved like those old Japanese paintings of like landscape.
oh,
And so he really wanted to make sure that like the art style of the show was that like mountains and the, you know, the Japanese style. But then
Yeah.
like moving into the show like further on, there's a lot of like themes and stuff that are very like westernized, like
Oh,
technology and cars and um places and like restaurants and that kind of stuff. It's all like really westernized, but like
I
there's
see.
still like all the food they eat is like Japanese, all the
I
like
see.
context. So it's kind of like this weird blend of like it's kind of like San Fran Tokyo from like Big Hero
Oh,
6, where it's like America, but it's very inspired by like Tokyo.
yeah.
Kind of becomes that. So
Interesting.
yeah, it just kind of blends both, to keep it interesting for Westerners, but also like Japanese enough for, that kind of to like it over there too.
Yeah, because the other thing that made me laugh too is like when they go to the village, like the diversity of the people in the
Yeah,
village
they're
was
like
so
Indi like
funny.
Native Americans and
Yeah, and there was like like Eastern European people and stuff like that. It was really
yeah.
funny. I was like, wow.
There's Indians too coming up to the like from India in an episode. Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, it's cool. No,
Like I
I
told you,
like all of it, and
once we get through this like Pilaf saga, like the Pilaf saga is very much about like this is what the Dragon Balls are, this is what they do. Like they're in the world moving forward. Like it's basically setting that up. The next season is like the martial arts like tournament. And that to me, that's when the show like really takes off because Toriyama, he loved like Bruce Lee and Jackie Chan. And he loved the Drunken Master, which is like stuff that we've talked about like a lot on this channel.
yeah. No, I am looking forward to it.
And it's the martial arts stuff is so good. That's why like when Yamcha shows up, it starts like he's got the wolfang fist. That's like his signature move.
Yeah.
So like already like okay cool, like you're seeing the
This is what
kung
we're
fu
doing.
martial arts stuff like
Yeah,
inspire.
yeah, like the stancing. I think I always like, right? You see,
Yeah,
they'll shoot it and
yeah,
like the feet shift and stuff like that, and I'm like,
yeah. I love
okay,
that. Even when
yeah,
Goku goes out to like train, he's picking up the rocks. He's got his like monkey paw.
yeah,
And,
yeah,
hey, I
yeah.
love that too when he tells Bulma, but yeah, if you take any longer, you're gonna turn into a turtle. And then he goes out and trains, and then he picks up that turtle. And he's like, "Oh, my Bulma."
Yeah.
But then she says, "Oh yeah, I wish we could help. I wish we could help take the turtle. We just don't have any time." And he goes, "You just took 4 hours to get ready. Like, obviously we have time."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like the innocent of him, and I like the thing that I've heard about Goku's character is like he doesn't attack, he defends,
Yeah.
and I like that
That's
pretty
what
much all the
makes
time.
there are moments in the show that give me like goosebumps because there are things that happen and Goku gets like almost becomes like unhinged at like certain things.
I
And
see.
it's like
Okay.
he kind of slips into this rage, like Saiyan rage, and it's like, oh, so good. It's so good. Like I can't wait till we get to that kind of stuff.
That's cool.
Not that he like loses himself, but he really taps into like there's this thing called like the like Saiyan rage that just like
I
it
see.
just it's
That's cool.
pretty good. It's pretty good. But yeah,
Cool.
so that is it. That's the first 7 episodes of Dragon Ball. So next time we will finish season 1, all the way to
Yep.
episode 13, all the way to what's episode 13 called?
Oh, I just have
The
it.
Legend of Goku. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
That's a
look
good
forward to
one. That's a good one.
it. Good.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yep. And then after that, we get into season 2, the tournament saga. There's pretty great stuff there. So yeah, thank you guys. Thank you for joining me. Will, thank you for watching and
of course.
watching Dragon Ball with me. It means a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fun. It's a good show. It's I don't know. You'll see once we get into more of it, like how like endearing it is, and
Yeah, like
I kind of hope from this too that maybe it'll branch you off into some other like anime stuff that Might
Yeah, I
interest
mean,
you.
it might. Yeah, it definitely may open the door to some things that I've heard good things about, just have
Yeah.
never sat down and watched.
Well, it's one of those things too, where like sometimes anime is kind of like lumped into this, like, oh, it's a cartoon, it's a kid thing, you know. But go watch Attack on Titan and tell me that that's a kid show.
Sure.
I mean, that show is that honestly, if we were going to do another series after Dragon Ball in 2030 when we finish Dragon Ball, I would say Attack on Titan would be the one. It's got a weird, like crazy story. Like it gets weirder and weirder and weirder, and I love that.
I look forward to it.
Yeah, cool. So that is it. That'll wrap up our first Dragon Ball episode. We're gonna try to do these once a month. We'll do half a season
Yeah.
once a month. So, but yeah, why don't you plug what you got going on? You got some stuff going on.
Oh yeah, I have my channel via non-capta, which works. Caleb comes over to my side of things pretty frequently. So I run a bi-weekly Star Trek RPG, Star Trek Adventures RPG game. I'm the game master over there. But only really during the like wintry cold months. So when we're in the nicer seasons here for us where we live, it's kind of slow going. So during the summer here, there's not too much content for that. So that made me decide. Uh, it wasn't like a, hey, well, if you're going to make me watch Dragon Ball, I'm going to make you watch this thing. It was a
No, it
thing
actually
where we
was.
just,
It actually, I said, if you're gonna make me watch Star Trek, you're watching Dragon Ball.
I don't remember you saying it, but maybe you did. I just don't remember you saying that.
In
But,
fewer words, yeah.
but, yeah, so I, Caleb, I think I've said it on my channel. In preparation for the Star Trek Adventures RPG game, I suggested all players watch Star Trek Enterprise, those who had not. And even those who had, just like refresh yourself with stuff. And Caleb said, took it seriously. He wanted to actually not be like,
Well,
well, who cares?
I was playing an engineer in the game, so I wanted to really make sure I knew like ship lingo and like like engine stuff.
Right, right.
And so like Trip Tucker, the engineer from Enterprise, like really became
Yeah.
like my favorite character on the show.
So that kind of spurred it. I mean, that's kind of like the thing. I said, well, you know what? He's into it. I need content for my channel, or at least I'd like content for my channel. I said, well, let's do a watch along. Let's do what we're doing here with Dragon Ball. Let's do it with Star Trek. So just
Yeah.
like you could just jump into the next thing, but I said, no, you know what? Let's watch it chronologically. So we just maybe by the time this goes up on this channel, my first episode will be up on of our thing. So if
It probably
that should be
will.
weekly, probably. I just gotta hit to film a couple more things, but still.
Yeah. I plan on putting this out maybe like middle of the month. So.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so I definitely have it up by then.
Yeah.
So
we got other stuff I gotta get out.
yeah, true. True. Yeah, so that's just over there. That will be weekly as long as him and I are both available, and
Yeah.
we'll tackle an episode every week. And you'll hear me over there say that come check out his stuff over here,
Yeah.
which doesn't just always have me in it. Like it's okay. It's okay that other things take place. He does cool stuff over here that has nothing to do with me, which is good.
Yeah, this
So
channel never really started out to be like a podcast channel, but it's just something that like we naturally talk about stuff all the time anyway, that I was
right,
like, why don't we
right.
just like talk about stuff and put it out?
Let's just do it.
And
Yeah,
if people like it, they like it. If not, well, whatever. Go watch I just built Legend of Zelda's Master Sword. Like go watch that,
exactly. Exactly. Yeah. We let people will watch what they want to watch, and that's pretty
Yeah.
much it.
And we've hit a few things where like we've been talking about something that's current and people are enjoying. So like, they watch it and it's cool.
Yeah. I also think too with you going and like building things and then separately talking about things, like it also helps your viewers and just people who maybe click on your channel just randomly, like see that like
Yeah.
you aren't just making things to be topical so that you get YouTube views, like you also just like this stuff. So
Yeah, it's just generally stuff that like I'm into and stuff that I'm doing. So I
right.
forget what channel it was. It was a long time ago. They basically said like, if you're gonna start a YouTube page, and if you're gonna do something, just film it.
Yeah, sure.
You know, you might as well. If you're gonna do something anyway, just make it content. Don't like specifically sit and make content because it'll burn you out. But if
No,
you're
don't.
doing something, just record it. You know, and then
Yeah,
take your time to like edit and put it out. Like doesn't
yeah,
if you sit down to do something, it's just like the other night, like we saw Spider-Verse in Across the Spider-Verse, and it was like I was gonna see that anyway. So why not
right,
just do like a hey, so we saw Spider-Verse, it was great,
right, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the same with this. Like eventually you and I probably would have been watching Dragon Ball without the context of this and probably Star Trek. So it's like,
Yeah.
well, if we're just gonna do it and talk to each other like when we see each other, like talk,
Yeah.
like might as well. The thing, honestly, the thing I think the point of this is as stuff has gone on,
Yeah.
our James Bond thing, our Jurassic Park stuff, it's like a really fun like look back.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a
A
journal
video
memory
diary.
thing,
Yeah.
like a video diary, yeah. And that's what's fun about it is like that's what I like mostly about it. It's not like, hey, I want the world to know what I think about this
No,
thing.
exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's what
So
I've been enjoying about this too, honestly, is because like I wanted to go back and rewatch like Dragon Ball Z from like this the Saiyan saga, like, to present.
all the way through, yeah.
Yeah. And then it was like I probably wouldn't have gone back and watched Dragon Ball, but like because you're doing it and you wanted to start from the beginning, I'm like, man, I love the show. Like I forgot like how much I love the show. Like
Yeah.
I think I watched all the way to like episode 31. Like when I got on a thing in the shop, I put it on the shop and I just let it play.
Yeah.
So it's like it's such a good, like it's nice that we're going through and watching it because like even for me, like going back and watching it, I'm really enjoying it. And I
Yeah,
probably wouldn't have
especially
done that.
yeah. I'm interested too, because it's like even me going back and watching old Star Trek that I've seen, I'm like, oh, okay. Like, and
Yeah.
now I get to watch it through your eyes, where you have like this type of knowledge of it. It's fun, honestly, so I can
Yeah.
understand, like,
Yeah.
because you know what's to come with the Dragon Ball stuff. Like, you know what's
Mm-hmm.
going to happen. You know what's coming. When they introduce a character, you're like,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
like and I don't know anything. I'm just like, oh, okay, that's that guy, and you're like, yeah, it is that guy. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's cool.
Yeah. It is cool. So yeah, that's it. That's it. That's what we got going on. That's what we got coming up. And yeah, that will hear the ice cream truck's coming, so I gotta go. That'll wrap it up for our first nerd holes. A nerd holies.
I don't know how to say
Yeah.
it, but yes, the
Yeah.
holes.
So I drew this up in Japanese, the nerd holes in Japanese, thinking I was like, real clever using Google Translate. Will hired a guy, actual Japanese guy on like Fiverr, and he's like, it's not what that is. It's not what that means at all. You're actually talking about something. It's like, oh, cool.
Cool.
Yeah.
My favorite text back from me was, "I don't see the problem. I don't see the issue."
Yeah. Will sent me like his whole chat, like telling, like explaining in detail, like what it actually meant, and I was like, "Is that not what the nerd is?"
Isn't that what the new girls are? And I was like, "Well, yeah, kind of."
Yeah, pretty much. Anyway, continue on with your day. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, his channel will be linked, and
Yeah.
he's in the title screen. You already saw his name in the title screen. The guy who did like the voiceover, the Japanese voiceover, and kind of gave us a language lesson too. So
Yeah.
yeah, shout out to that guy. That was pretty cool.
Yeah. He definitely didn't have to be as nice about it, Like
He
he
could have
could have
just
just been like,
recorded the
"You
line.
morons."
He could have
Yeah.
just recorded the line and moved on and be like, those guys are stupid. Oh boy. All right. Well, we will catch you guys in the next one.